Ole Miss and the SEC will get everything they want, and all the lesser conferences can do is cry about it.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast around. I am your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media and a former Ole Miss staff member. Today's show, we discuss why the SEC and Big Ten are in the driver's seat. And the reality is they're going to get everything they want. We'll tell you why. These two conferences are the power brokers in the NCAA right now, not just in football, but across all sports. They are the consistent money makers on and off the field, and that leverage matters. In the second segment, we'll talk about why this is actually a good thing for Ole Miss and smaller programs. And honestly, every school in the Big 12 and ACC that's serious about football, they need to be quietly looking for an exit strategy to the SEC and Big Ten if they can. We'll wrap things up with a friend of the program and Derek Vandegrift as we dive into the Oxford Regional and get to know the opponents coming to town Friday. Remember, we're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make the show what it is. Don't forget to find a second listen on the network. Chris Gordy at Locked On SEC is excellent, as is Corey Burton at Locked On Vandy. They offer even more perspectives on college football than the SEC, and from time to time, even Ole Miss. Listen, this week in Destin, Florida is all about the college football playoff and all about the direction that the SEC and the Big Ten is going to take college football. Because make no mistake, it's going to happen. The SEC and the Big Ten are 1/3 of the NCAA basketball tournament. That is where the money comes in on the NCAA tournament or for the NCAA. Baseball, well, we don't even need to talk about baseball, do we? 8 out of 16 regional hosts are SEC teams, and the college football playoff is out there as well. And to put this in perspective, when they were getting ready for this first expanded college football playoff, right? The first one, they're going to have the 12-team playoffs. The SEC and the Big Ten listen to everybody. What's good for the game? You know what's good for the game? Automatic qualifiers. We're going to put Boise State and Arizona State in the top 4 and completely screw up the seeding matters of what's going on. We're going to ignore quality losses and just count a loss as a loss. It doesn't matter your strength of schedule. The SEC and the Big Ten, even though the Big Ten won the national championship, they got hosed the last round of negotiation. So what that has done has completely steeled their nerves, and they are prepared for everybody to cry loud over the good of the game in this playoff thing. The committee biased. There absolutely was. People getting bonuses on their check for more members of their conferences getting into the college football playoff. Can't have that. There has to be a separation. What is going on with the SEC and the Big Ten? They decided that conferences should take back control of this. The SEC has 4 spots. The Big Ten has 4 spots. The Big 12, the ACC have 2 apiece. The G5 has 1. And if Notre Dame is in the top 16, they get 1. The rest are at large. If Notre Dame's not, there's 3. If there is, there's 2. It works. It's absolutely fantastic because the conferences can decide how to award those games. If you're not going to put the best teams in the playoff and the conference is going to lose in the playoff, they're going to take their system in a way to where the best teams are in the college football playoff. But as it sits right now, the TV partners and the SEC and Big Ten are trying to find the best possible matchups, the best possible TV product, the best way to present what is going on to make a playoffs the most profitable it can be. Money's going to win out on this. SEC and the Big Ten are the 2 most powerful conferences in the country by far, and they're going to flex their muscles this time. Now, the good of the game, they want the ACC and the Big 12 to get more than 2 spots. Well, traditionally, they get about 2 spots in the top 16 annually. If you look at the past 11 years, the SEC and the Big 10 are at a far greater disadvantage of only getting 4, because they would normally get around 4.5 or 5 than the Big 12 and the ACC. But all you will hear in all of these think pieces is how the SEC and the Big 10 is ruining college football. What the SEC and the Big 10 is doing is ruining the Big 12 and the ACC. The teams in that conference, we'll talk about that in just a second. But that's what the SEC and the Big 10's doing. They are putting the best possible product on the field for their conference. They're trying to set it up to where there's 9 SEC games, a Big 10 game on the schedule each and every year. All of the cross-conference rivals, the Kentucky and Louisville, Florida States, still on the schedule. Conference championship game, not just a conference champion. You have a 3 versus 6 game and a 4 versus 5 game to determine who goes to the college football playoff. It is a better system. And if you're not in the Big 12 or the ACC, you would acknowledge that fact. So all you have at your disposal is to cry loud and hope the SEC blinks. The Big 10 hasn't publicly endorsed a playoff model yet, but the rumor is in Los Angeles last week, they passed the 4 automatic qualifiers, which means the SEC this week is likely going to do the same. And the 9 conference games, and they're going to start to work on the Big 10 SEC showdown, as it were, and put the conference championship games in place for next season the way this works out. This is a better product for the SEC and the Big 10. Is it a better product for the Big 12 or the ACC? No, but my argument is, wouldn't you rather be included in a playoff, even if you're going to get your brains beat in, than not? Because all the alternative is the Big 10 and the SEC break away, as we discussed on yesterday's podcast, and your conferences die on the vine as a G8 conference. You're having your own playoffs. You become the new de facto 1AA as it stands. And everybody knows who North Dakota State is. You would be Texas Tech or Oklahoma State or Clemson or Florida State, as it sits now, would be the new North Dakota State. The division below, hey, they had a good run. We're going to watch the playoffs because it's football, but you're not in the Big 10 of the SEC. Wouldn't you like to have access rather than not? That is the options. Do you want a part of this or do you not want a part of this? Everybody wants more piece of the pie. Shut up and take what we give you. Because the reality is the SEC and the Big 10 can go off and do their own playoff and make more money than you being in it. And like I said, your best teams, once this happens, is going to immediately look to leave your conference to try and get into the power conference if they care at all about football. And we will talk about that coming up next. Every school remotely serious about football is trying to back channel the SEC and the Big 10 right now to talk about what is next. We'll get on that topic right after this. You know, the NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. I don't watch a lot of NBA, but I do watch a lot of MLB. And what I've noticed is Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green, they should be commended for what they're doing. And a same-game parlay of those two players, maybe a Detroit Tigers win, that's pretty good on most nights. Heck, you can get Ole Miss at 8.5 wins this fall as an over-under. The point is there's something for absolute everybody. If you're new to FanDuel, Well, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, so this is a very good scenario for everybody involved in the Big Ten and the SEC, and whoever is involved in this project is going to do completely well. If you're in the ACC or the Big 12, you should be sweating profusely about right now because you don't know who ESPN and Fox is coming after. You don't know who the SEC or the Big Ten is coming after. But make no mistake, they're not going to stop at 35. Other than Notre Dame, maybe North Carolina, possibly Clemson, and Florida State. Those are four names that could pop up. We do not know what the cap is right now, but what we do know is teams and conferences other than the SEC and the Big Ten are kind of trying to peacock themselves to let everybody know they're available and interested. So if this goes down, and if everything happens the way it is, they hope to get a seat at the table before the music stops. Listen, Florida State and Clemson just basically tried all sorts of ways to get out of the ACC because they know what is coming down the road. The ACC will not let anybody see their contract. Everything is on the very hush-hush. But when you look at Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina rumored to want out. North Carolina is probably not going anywhere without Virginia. I think between the SEC and the Big Ten, they could get in the neighborhood of 45 and 50 teams if they want to. I know they can do 40, though, and they have the room to do it. They might have to divide back up into divisions and stuff like that, but they have the ability to do that. And then the super conference era begins. The Big 12 is interesting to me because there are some major brands in the Big 12 that you could go after. It's not Houston. It's probably not Oklahoma State. It's not Iowa State. Heck, it's probably not even Kansas, if we're going to be real. Although Kansas to the SEC, especially with how dominant they've been recently in basketball, would be at least interesting. It would be interesting. But when you look at Arizona or Arizona State, that might be a situation to where they get pulled in to one of the two major conferences. Texas Tech is actively through their NIL group right now, trying to peacock to let everybody know that, hey, it's going to be a little bit different over here. We are willing to spend. We're willing to honor the first part of our name, which is Texas, and behave like Texas. And they're trying to get a seat into one of these conferences. Baylor, which only got into the Big 12 because of Ann Richards, but that's another discussion altogether. They're probably not going to come in as well. Colorado, maybe because of Dion gets a seat, but Colorado historically does not get a seat at the table. When you look at the teams that are possibly available, maybe Utah, maybe BYU, although I don't think anybody would go with, we're not going to play on Sunday. So BYU may miss the boat on that one as well. But the point is, if you are remotely serious about football, you are back channeling to the SEC and the Big Ten to try and get a seat before everything stops. Because like we said in the first segment, everything they want, they're going to get. All you can do is cry about it. Literally, you can get on Twitter and you can yell. You can have Stuart Mandel or whoever, Pete Thamel, write think pieces on ESPN about how this ruins the game. You can do all of that stuff, but at the end, as long as Greg Sankey has an iron will and they have completely decided that this is happening, this is happening. Because the reality of the situation is the SEC and the Big Ten only need to agree on the format. They do not need anything from the Big 12 or the ACC. And the Big 12 and the ACC and all the Group of Five conferences signed those rights over, which means they're probably likely only posturing right now to prove that, because they know that a seat at the table is better than not having a seat at all. The road to irrelevance starts with the SEC and the Big Ten breaking away in football. And if they want to be a stickler, they can break away in basketball and baseball as well. And they're likely going to dominate those sports as it goes. Listen, everybody wants their team and conference to succeed. Everybody poked fun at Washington State and Oregon State whenever they were left out in the cold over the last round of conference realignment. Nobody wants to be left out. Their teams mean so much to them. I get that. I understand that. But the reality of the situation is you're not quite there yet. So you have to go through the back channels and work to try to get into one of these leagues. UCF and USF and all those, they don't really have a chance. But if you're Miami, if you are Florida State, if you are North Carolina, Clemson, heck, even if you're Georgia Tech, I would at least give it a try. If you're Tulane, give it a try to see if the SEC has a little bit of a nostalgia feel ready for it. Ole Miss is good at sports at the absolute perfect time. With everything that's going on that could happen, with all of the splits, Ole Miss having their best athletic season in just about every sport. They just had an individual golf national champion a couple of days ago. You can see how they're having this at the perfect time. Now, the benefit of all this is Mississippi State's going to get to ride along with them. Congratulations, Bulldogs. Don't say mean things about us, because what we're doing adds a ceiling a little bit higher to what you're doing, even if you're projected by FanDuel to win like 3.5 or 4.5 games this season. Ole Miss football has Lane Kiffin front and center on the cover of the next EA college sports game. This is a pretty good deal, and this is a very good thing for Ole Miss football. With everything that is slated to happen, where you only have to finish 6 out of however many it ends up, but at least for now, 16, to have a chance on championship game Saturday to play for the right to go to the college football playoff. And then you have basically a first 4 of the 12 versus 16 or the 13 versus 16 and the 14 and 15 playing for the next round. It should be interesting. And if these networks are smart, which they are, my conspiracy theory is when the Longhorn Network got formed, it got formed to get to this point. All of this was mapped out by some TV exec in 2012. It was a long game, and it's almost at its conclusion. If they can figure out what they're doing, have a multiple TV partners. I think Fox needs to come on board in the college football playoff with ESPN, and then all of a sudden you split it like the NFL, NFC and AFC, and you just kind of let it go. And the conferences get to stay in. The lesser conferences get to stay in. They don't get a say, but they get to participate. And if that happens, I think college football will be better off. Now, would it be better off if you are a Baylor fan? Probably not. Definitely not. Would it be better off if you're a Wake Forest fan? Hey, but you've already admitted by canceling the Ole Miss game that you don't even play the same sport. The point of this is, cry all you want to. Greg Sankey with an iron will is going to take this to the next level, and it should be interesting to see. In our final segment, Ole Miss's regional opponents have been announced, and this draw looks kind of tougher than most. We'll break it all down next, so stick around. Great friend of the program, Derek Vandy Griff, joins the main show. The big time Derek to talk about the baseball regional coming up on Friday. The teams got announced. Georgia Tech, I knew as soon as Georgia Tech wasn't going to host, I knew they would be in the Oxford Regional. Western Kentucky and their 46 wins is going to be in Oxford. And Murray State, who, if I'm not mistaken, the last time Murray State came to Oxford, they left out with a W. If I'm not, I might be a little bit off on that. Tell me what I can expect in this regional.
Yeah. So with Murray State there on Friday, we did play them in the midweek this past year. Obviously, I believe we ended up taking that one in the 10th inning. They came back and tied it. We got the extra innings. We ended up winning it later on there. But look, good program. They found a way to almost fit 3 40-win teams into the Oxford Regional as the 10 seed. This is no pushover, right? Murray State and Western Kentucky both won their conference tournaments. Georgia Tech, as everybody knows, won the ACC regular season championship, so they're no pushover, albeit with a light schedule. You can debate that all you would like. But look, we didn't get any favors as far as the draw here. This is going to be a tough regional. 3 really good teams coming into Oxford to pair with Ole Miss, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We're to get this thing kicked off. 3 o'clock for the first game on Friday, 7 o'clock for the Rebels on Saturday night there against Murray State. But to touch on Murray State real quick, though, this is a really interesting team because it's a team that doesn't pitch it particularly well, which is what you want out of a 4 seed. You want to avoid those 4 seeds that have a dude. With the guy that keeps coming to mind was SEMO a few years ago. They pitched Dylan Dodd against us. Ole Miss ends up getting through that. But when you saw Dylan Dodd pitch, you thought, yeah, that guy's got it. And sure enough, it wasn't 2 years later. He is toeing the rubber for the Atlanta Braves in his major league debut with the crafty lefty out there. So that guy was really good. You don't have that here with Murray State. You got a team that hits it pretty well. There's a couple guys that can run one out of the ballpark if you let them. Jonathan Hogwarts and Carson Garner, they both have 16 home runs. Garner also leads them in stolen bases with 14 coming into this regional. What they do really well is they walk a ton and they don't strike out. Now you're playing in the Missouri Valley, so it's not really apples to apples when it comes to Ole Miss and Murray State. But I went through and looked up walk and strikeout numbers just to kind of compare it. Coming into this weekend, Ole Miss ranks 22nd in the country in walks with 321. Murray State's right behind them at 27 with 315. Obviously Ole Miss has to be a little more selective. You're going to see more strikes in the SEC, so it's probably a little more impressive. But, man, when you get to those strikeouts, Steven, it is incredible. I knew Ole Miss struck out a lot, something we've talked about a lot all year long. We strike out the 3rd most in the country. That's where we're at going into these regionals. We struck out 557 times coming into this weekend, which is only behind Davidson and BYU in the entire country. On the flip side, Murray State does a really good job of not striking out. They strike out the 28th least in the entire country, only 347. So they've struck out 210 less times than Ole Miss has. Again, not apples to apples, not facing the same pitching, right? Ole Miss runs out of the ballpark at a much higher clip. But this is a team that does a really good job of manufacturing runs, getting guys on base, getting them from station to station, and then getting them in. But they don't pitch it particularly well, though. So I think it's a pretty good matchup for Ole Miss, and one that kind of puts a decision in Mike Bianco's lap on what you're going to do on the mound come Friday night.
That's what I was thinking of. Do you throw Hunter Elliott on Friday for the chance that if you need him on Monday, he's available? Do you throw Riley Maddox? I know everybody says it's a 4 seed, and there's probably some super hot takes about who throws on that Friday night to kind of conserve your staff. But I think in my head, I think it's probably Hunter Elliott because you want to win that game and you just let Western Kentucky and Georgia Tech kind of kill each other.
Yeah, I think Mike is going to throw Hunter Elliott. If it were me, I would run out Riley Maddox. Maddox has been really good for the last month, right? He's shown that he can go deeper into games. I know that didn't happen against Arkansas in the SEC tournament. Went, 4 innings or 4 1/3, whatever it was. But he's shown that he can do it over the last month and hold teams at bay. He's pitched really well. I would throw Riley Maddox and hold Hunter for Georgia Tech or Western Kentucky because you're already going to be at their number 2 starter at that point because they both have to throw their ace. because those are two teams that can really, really hit it. Really gives you an advantage. Biggest thing on Friday night, I really don't care who they start with. I don't want to see Mason Morris, Will McCausland, or Connor Spencer if you don't have to. I need the offense to show up and go bash your way to a big win and save that bullpen going into game two, because really it doesn't matter who you throw on Friday night as long as you can save those three arms going into Saturday. So I need the offense to break out of this little mini slump they've been in and go out there and put up 10, 15 runs. And that way we can coast to a pretty easy win here on Friday night, because Murray State doesn't throw it particularly well either. We're going to get Nick Shute, their ace. Now he's 7-3 with the 4.02 ERA, but when you go up and down the teams he's faced this year, Steven, it's not particularly impressive. 78 innings pitched, 77 strikeouts, does walk a good bit, 42 there in those 78 innings. So we need the offense to bash our way to a win. And as long as you don't have to use those three bullpen arms, then that's a success on Friday.
And what is the latest on Ryan Moorman and Mason Nichols?
According to Mike Bianco, he expects both of them to pitch, or both of them to play, Nichols to pitch and Moorman to play, obviously, with the sprained knee. That was an unbelievable collision there in the outfield in Hoover. I've never seen anything like it. I thought somebody was seriously hurt there, especially when Moorman tried to get up and walk it off and you see him go right back down to the ground. So got out lucky if it's just a sprained knee. Bianco expects both of them back, though. Big to have him back out there roaming right field. He's been really good defensively for us. And the bat can get hot at the right time. So that would be quite a boost for the Rebels here going into this regional.
They're matched up with the Georgia regional, so if Ole Miss gets through, they're facing the Georgia regional. Is there any chance anybody other than Georgia wins that regional?
I mean, a chance, sure. Is there a good one? No, I don't think so. Now, the one thing about Georgia, they don't throw it very well, right? That's always been their Achilles heel all year long is their pitching. Now, but they hit the fire out of the ball. There's always a chance that the offense is going to go cold and somebody can jump up and beat you once or twice on a weekend there. So I would say that's the only way that Georgia doesn't make it out of their regional. Their offense goes cold. The ballpark doesn't play as small as it has all year long. Because they're not going to throw it particularly well. But if the bats come alive, I think Georgia skates through that one fairly easily, I would say.
If Ole Miss gets Georgia, is it just home run derby at Foley Field?
That's exactly what it's going to be. And it's actually a really good matchup for Ole Miss, I think, because our pitching has been so good here for the last month. We've really found some things, not only in the rotation, but in the bullpen too. We've got some guys out there who can go in there and get out. Even against the really good hitters in this league. You saw it all week in Hoover this past week. So looks like Ole Miss is clicking at the right time. Dare I say, Steven, it looks a lot like that 22 team where if you're going to get us, you better get us on Friday and Saturday, right? Because we've got two guys that can go out there with those three bullpen arms that can cover 18 innings and beat you twice without blinking an eye.
So what do you got going on Ole Miss After Dark right now, buddy?
Not a whole lot right now. Been pretty busy, life and daughter with softball and stuff like that. We haven't been able to link up schedules to record one. I'm going to get on here and I am going to do one this week, though, leading into the regionals, obviously, and do another one after the regionals are over with. But definitely keep an eye out for that. And we'll go through everything you need to know on that. And then we'll be back to talk about Ole Miss probably traveling to Athens for a super, and then we'll hop back on after that and talk about the Rebels returning to Omaha, right where they belong.
Listen, I will say this. Ole Miss in Omaha, the way this team pitches, that park is perfect for Ole Miss.
Yep.
If Ole Miss can get there, they're going to be a problem.
Yeah. They can absolutely make a run. Just look at Hoover last week, the way that ballpark played. It's not dissimilar, right? It's a big ballpark. We got guys that can keep the ball on the ground, especially – again, Riley Mack's the way he's pitching right now. He's keeping it in on the hands. The sinker's working, forcing a lot of ground balls there. So everything's clicking at the right time. It feels eerily similar to 22. Now, it may not end up being the same end result, but it's a lot of fun to watch.
All right, Dids. Thank you very much for joining us. And thanks, everybody. Just want to let you know that thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the #1 Ole Miss podcast. Your support means the world to us. Coming up on Friday, Chris Childers from Sirius XM Radio if technology permits, we'll be on the show. For your second listen, check out The Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes around college football's landscape. Find The Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hotty toddy, everybody. And remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. Evergreen show tomorrow. We'll be back Friday. We'll see you then.